Good morning. um, so I think that after that reading sorry, one sec. After that reading in PowerPoint on ancient China, we're just going to move along so we can get to the other ancient civilizations before this section ends, because in the next session, I'm going to try and do something a little bit different. So I want to rush through these ancient civilizations quick. So that's what we're going to do. So with no further ado, I will finish with my last lecture for a little bit. Lucky for you guys. Okay, so play the slideshow. Let's get the laser pointer. Let's take a drink out of the coffee. Okay, so we are now on to our fourth and final ancient river civilization. After this point in history, after we moved past the ancient river civilizations, technology allows cities to be built a little bit further away from these major rivers and kind of along the coastlines and things like that. So human civilization begins to spread a lot more after these. These are the beginning. So the Indus River Valley, it is this beautiful place, gorgeous place of the world. I have been to India. I've never been to Pakistan, though. When I was in India, though, we were at the bottom, this bit down here, Goa. So I never went to this area, but India itself is quite beautiful. I think North India and South India are very different, geographically speaking. They're not very similar. So we've got Harappa, which is arguably the oldest city in the world. Mohenjo-Daro, another very ancient city. These are some of the most well-designed cities on the planet. We'll learn about them. So the Indus River Valley, unlike the Nile, is unpredictable river flooding. So it's like Mesopotamia. You don't know when the rivers are going to flood. You don't know how much they're going to flood. So it makes life a little bit tougher. They have very strong winds in this area. And also monsoons. Monsoons are basically like giant, huge rainstorms, hurricanes type situations. So they're protected in the north by the Himalaya Mountains. That's where Mount Everest is, which I'm sure most of you have heard, the highest peak in the world. Not the tallest peak, but the highest peak. The Himalayan mountains are the coolest mountains ever. They're super huge, amazing, inhospitable. So here's a nice picture of the Indus River Valley. Give you an idea of what it's like to live there. That's the Indus River. Looks pretty. Archaeology. So this is these are the ruins of their cities. They're super well-built cities. It's incredible. So in 1922, that's when we discovered the Indus River Valley civilization. It was discovered by British archaeologists. I have a feeling that Indians always knew about it, but that's when the Western world discovered it. We still don't know what their writing was. We've never translated their language, so we don't know what this kind of stuff means. These are seals, so you would have put this in wax and stamped this on a piece of paper to keep the letter shut. They got like some yak looking thing here. It looks like a bull. So their major cities were really cool, very well designed. Still, the ruins are in really good shape. Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro are the most well-planned cities. They're the biggest, and they're the ones that we studied the most. They both had a very well-planned grid pattern. So these guys knew how to build in grids, so they had plans when they built their cities. Unlike many Mesopotamian cities, didn't have grids. built with standard size bricks with extensive plumbing systems. So their bricks were all the same size. So they had some sort of measurement system. We know that. And they had a really extensive plumbing system. They had running water. So you could turn a faucet on and water would have come out of it. They had fountains. They had toilets that flushed. They were ahead of the plumbing game. I don't think any other cities had as good as plumbing for the next 5,000 to 6,000 years after this city, which is amazing. They were able to build these really nice circular stacks, it's really tough to build. Every brick has to be angled correctly. So they obviously were good builders. So this is what Mohenjo-Daro looks like today. So some of probably the most well-preserved ancient city ever made, because of its just fabulous architecture. Like the people who built it were so good at building. It's incredible. So economy, they would have been a agriculture economy, as all cultures were at this point. So food was the name of the game. They farmed wheat, barley, melons, and dates. Dates are delicious little fruits. They used irrigation systems, which we've learned about. Most of the other civilizations had figured this out as well, irrigation systems. They would dig canals to redirect water. And we know they traded things like cotton, cloth, grain, copper, bronze, pearls, and ivory in cities because they would be marked individually and we could see them travel from city to city. They were polytheistic, much like every religion at this point. I don't think there were any monotheistic religions at this point in human history. So they believed in many gods, thousands and thousands of gods. Their main god was the mother goddess of creation. And see, they use sacred images as the bull and the tiger a lot. So bulls are really predominant in the Indus River civilization, and that can still be seen today in Hinduism, where they worship. Well, I don't know if they worship necessarily. I'm not entirely sure, but cows and bulls have a very sacred place in Hindu belief system, and that it was the same for these very ancient people who lived there, 6,000 to 7,000 years ago. And then the disappearance. All of a sudden, the Indus River civilization just ends. After 1500 BC, we don't see any new construction. We see the cities fall into ruin, into collapse. So something happened. Some people believe maybe a massive earthquake damaged the city so much that people left the cities and went to the countryside. Perhaps a giant tsunami wiped out the city. They don't know. A disease. If you can figure that out, you will be a very famous person someday if you want to become an archaeologist and discover why the Indus River civilization collapsed. Another possible thing is invasion by Aryans. These are not the Aryans that the Nazis talked about. It's not the Aryan race of the Nazi race. The Aryans were a group. They were an ethnicity, an ethnic group from North India, perhaps the Afghanistan region, maybe even northern Afghanistan. And they were very good warriors. So they conquered a lot of civilizations. So we'll hear about the Aryans a lot. They ended up conquering and settling much of Asia, especially what we call Indo-European. So Eastern Europe, Asia, Russia, all those places. So the Aryan people, they migrate into India through the Khyber Pass, which is up here. So they come down from Afghanistan and Iran. The Hindu Kush Mountains are in Afghanistan. So they come down into northern India and they kind of invade a bunch of civilizations down here. India was not just like one country at the time. India would have been 700 or 800 or 900 different little kingdoms inside all this area. So the Aryans come migrating into the area, probably because they were fleeing something like maybe they were coming in to get more food, more money. So this is the beginning of the Vedic age. So this is 1,750 years before the Common Era. So that would be, what, 3,970 years ago, I think. That's the Vedic age. So about 4,000 years ago, the Vedic age begins, and they call it the Vedic age because it's based on the Vedas, which are books or poems. They're written in Sanskrit, so we know that language. It's not the ancient Indus River civilization. This is post-river civilization now, or Indus River, sorry. So these are the oldest scriptures of Hinduism. So the Vedas are the sacred text of the Hindu belief system. It's not really a religion. Includes poems, prayers, and the Hindu gods and goddesses. So there'll be like a little description of what this god is and what they represent. Some of them are just poems, some of them are prayers, some of them are kind of like advice cards. So Aryan society, here's some kind of pictures of what people would have looked like back then. They were divided by occupation. And the Aryan society divided by occupation, the hierarchy in that society is what is place in India for a long time. It's recently been outlawed. It's the caste system. And the caste system was not originally an Indian thing. The British people, when they conquered India, implemented the caste system as a way to divide the Indian people so they would be easier to conquer. So the caste system today is a reflection of the Aryan society's caste system, but it is a product of colonialism. So the Brahmins would have been the priests. They're at the very top of the class. We'll just skip that stuff. Oops, sorry. So the priests are at the top. The warriors are at the second to top. And then it would be the farmers, the herders, the artisans, and the merchants. And then the slaves, the laborers, the servants, the non-Aryans. And in Aryan society, there was no way to advance. When you were born one of these people, you did what you just did that forever. So if your father was born a warrior, you were a warrior. If your father was born a farmer, then you were a farmer. If he was born a servant, then you were a servant forever. So that's called the caste system. And the Hindus have a caste system in modern times. They don't right now. They made it illegal a while ago, maybe in the 80s. But it is the basis of Hindu society, where the religious figures are on top and the servants are on the bottom. They call them the untouchables nowadays. They're supposed to be so dirty you don't touch them. So they're at the very bottom. And if you're a rich person, you won't ever even touch them because they're so dirty. So I'll post the guided notes and then the slideshow up, and you guys can. Oh, excuse me. And then you guys can, go through the notes and the slides on your own. So thanks for watching. Have a great day.